There were 21 different comic book titles on the newsstands with a cover date of October 1938. On October 13th, E.C. Cigar, creator of Thimble Theater and Popeye, died at the age of 44. There was one new series debuting this month, Little Giant Detective Funnies, number 1. October 1938, published by Centaur Publications. This small comic had the dimensions of 6 3/4 by 4.5 inches. A black and white comic with a color cover, also containing puzzles and magic tricks, and a super thick comic at 132 pages. Gerber rates it an 8 for rarity, and there is a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this issue. Jumbo Comics, number 2, October 1938, published by Fiction House. Their very first comic title, now in its second issue. The first 8 issues of this series measure 10.5 inches by 14.5, oversized, and cannot be graded by the CGC due to their size. This rare issue, number 2, features the second appearance of Sheena and 3 stories by a young Jack Kirby. There is a strip of Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen that previews the cartoon A Letter of Introduction. Gerber rates this issue as 7 for rarity, and Overstreet calls it rare. The first 8 issues of this series are in black and white. And parts of this issue are reprinted from Wags, the UK magazine, from Editor's Press Service. Issues number 24, 28, 30, 62, 64, 65, and 72 are featured here. Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen are featured on the cover. Bob Kane wrote and drew the 5-page strip Peter Pup, featuring the first appearance of Merkin and Buddha the Genie. And this is reprinted from Wags, the UK edition, at Editor's Press Service, number 27, dated July 2nd, 1937. Hawks of the Seas is a 5-page story written and drawn by Will Eisner under the alias Willis B. Renzi. This historical strip features Hawk and Marystone and is reprinted from Wags, the UK magazine, number 62. Bob Kane also writes and draws Jest Laughs, a short humor strip based on Universal Phoenix Syndicate material. And Bob Kane also writes Phil O's Suppies, a short cartoon humor with 3 one-panel jokes based on Universal Phoenix Syndicate material. The Count of Monte Cristo is a 4-page story, possibly written by Jack Kirby, but definitely drawn by him under the alias Jack Curtis, featuring the characters Edmond Dantes and Villefort. This is reprinted from the Wags UK edition, issue number 68, from June 17, 1938. Jerry Iger writes and draws Bobby, 2 pages, based on the Universal Phoenix Features Syndicate. Uncle Otto is a 1-page story written and drawn by Will Eisner under the alias Carl Heck, the humor strip based on Universal Phoenix Features, one of them dated August 23, 1937. The Diary of Dr. Hayward is a 4-page story drawn by Jack Kirby under the alias Kurt Davis. The adventure strip is reprinted from Wags, number 68, dated June 17, 1938. And Sheena has her second American comic book appearance in a 4-page story drawn by Mort Meskin. And this also features a witch doctor and the first appearance of the villain Bat Morgan. This is reprinted from Wags, the UK edition, issue 68, dated June 17, 1938. Wilton of the West is a 4-page story drawn by Jack Kirby, a Western frontier strip. Red Fang is a 2-page text story with the lead character named Johnny Storm, not to be confused with the later popular name used by the Human Torch. Pee-wee is a 1-page story written and drawn by Jerry Iger. The humor children's story is reprinted later in Jumbo Comics number 27 in 1941. It's based on strips from the Universal Phoenix Syndicate dated October 4th, 1937 and August 23rd, 1937. Gilda Gay is a 1-page story drawn by Bernard Bailey from the Universal Phoenix Syndicate dated December 6th and November 22nd, 1937. And ZX5, Spies in Action, is a 4-page story written and drawn by Will Eisner under the alias Major Thorpe, featuring the characters ZX5 and Baron de Rolf, and is reprinted from Wags, issue number 54. Little Giant Movie Funnies, number 2, October 1938, published by Centaur Publications. This comic is small size, dimension 6 3/4 by 4.5 inches, 132 page count, color cover but black and white interior. This was now one of 3 different titles published by Centaur in their Little Giant Funnies series with all small dimensions. Little Giant Comics number 3, October 1938, published by Centaur Publications. Same as their other Little Giant books. Dimensions of 6 3/4 by 4.5 inches with a thick 132 pages. The contents consist of comics, puzzles, and games. Gerber rates this an 8 for rarity. Action Comics number 5, October 1938, published by DC Comics. An on-sale date of August 25th, 1938. The cover is by artist Leo E. Omealia. There's a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book. Gerber rates it an 8 for rarity. There is a Superman strip running 9 pages from the team of Siegel and Schuster, featuring Superman, Clark Kent, Lois Lane, and George Taylor, who is not yet named. Lois and Clark compete with one another to get the scoop on the possible collapse of the Valley Ho Dam. This story is later reprinted in Superman number 3 from winter 1939. Lois Lane makes an appearance, and newspaper editor George Taylor asks for Clark Kent, saying that he has a job for him and that it's not a job for a girl. Lois Lane is furious, so Lois tricks Clark Kent and sends him a fictional story while she boards a train. Superman later tries to prevent a train bridge from collapsing, and then he works on saving the dam. Superman saves Lois and carries her and leaps through the air. Lois gives Superman their first kiss ever. She asks him to stay with her always. This is the 5th appearance of Superman and Clark Kent. The Diddle Family is a 2-page story written and drawn by Paul Gustafson. Pet Morgan is 4 pages from writer Gardner Fox with art by Fred Gardenier under the alias Gene Baxter. Valley of the Past is a 2-page text story written by Richard Martin. And this is about 2 young men camping in the Arizona wilderness when they encounter an ancient beast, an early science fiction comic strip. Tex Thompson is a lengthy 10-page story, possibly written by Ken Fitch, with art by Bernard Bailey in this adventure strip. Scoop Scan and 5-Star Reporter is 6 pages, drawn by Will Eli. And Zaytera, Master Magician, is a lengthy 12-page story written and drawn by Fred Gardenier. This is the 5th appearance of Zaytera. Starlight is a 1-page cartoon strip drawn by Sheldon Moldoff. Crackajack Funnies, number 5, October 1938, published by Dell Comics. There is a nude woman on the cover of this comic. That is the first time that has happened. There is a Mile High pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. There is also a file copy from Dell Comics, and the official on-sale date of this book was August 23rd, 1938. Myra North is featured on the cover with art by Charles Cole, and the cover reprints a page from the interior strip but miscolors a statue image, therefore creating a nude woman panel on the cover. Dan Dunn appears in 5 pages written and drawn by Norman Marsh in his detective mystery. Tom Mix appears in a 4-page story written and drawn by Al Lewin in this Western Frontier strip. Jaragoo and the Lost Islands is a 4-page adventure jungle story. And Don Winslow appears in 4 pages, written by Lieutenant Frank Martinek and drawn by Leon Baroth in this war adventure strip. Super Comics number 6, October 1938, published by Dell Comics. There is a Dell Comics file copy of this book. The cover art is by Bill Holman. Dick Tracy appears in a 4-page story written and drawn by Chester Gould and is copyright 1937, the Chicago Tribune New York News Syndicate. Little Orphan Annie returns in 4 pages written and drawn by Harold Gray. Terry and the Pirates returns in 5 pages from writer-artist Milt Caniff. Comics on Parade number 7, October 1938, published by United Features Syndicate. Features Lil Abner on the cover. There's also strip appearances by Tarzan, Abby and Slats, Captain and the Kids, Alice Cinders, Alice in Wonderland, Bronco Bill, and many others. Feature Funnies number 13, October 1938, published by Quality Comics. Mickey Finn is featured on the cover with art by Lank Leonard. Espionage, starring Black X, is a 4-page story written and drawn by Will Eisner under the alias Will Irwin, and features the first appearance and origin of Black X, who is Richard Spencer. And this comes from the Eisner-Iger shop. Lollapalooza returns in 4 pages from writer-artist Rube Goldberg in strip reprints from the Frank J. Markey Syndicate. Archie O'Toole is a 2-page story written and drawn by Will Eisner under the alias Bud Thomas, and also comes from the Eisner-Iger shop. Screen Snapshots is a 1-page cartoon written and drawn by Bernard Bailey. This biography tale is from the Eisner-Iger shop. The superhero The Clock returns in The Clock Strikes, a 5-page story from writer-artist George Brenner, featuring The Clock and the first appearance of the villain Z.Y. Callis. And this also comes from the Eisner-Iger shop. Gallant Knight is a 4-page story written and drawn by Vernon Henkel. This historical strip features Sir Neville and the first appearance of the villain Sir Borat. And this comes from the Eisner-Iger shop. Star Ranger Funnies, Volume 1, Number 15, October 1938, published by Centaur Publications. This was part of the first Western series, initially called Star Ranger and then Cowboy Comics. Content was produced by the Iger Shop and included art by that group's biggest name, Will Eisner. This is the first issue of the new title. There is a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. The cover art is by Terry Gilkyson in this Western Frontier-themed cover. Home in the Ozarks is a 5-page strip drawn by Jack Cole. Rain Geography is a 1-page text article written by Terry Gilkyson, who also did the art in this biographical story about Wild Bill Hickok. The Irmine is a 4-page story written by George Phil Chalk, with art possibly by Phil Chalk under the alias Phil Chalk. And this Western Frontier strip, it features the first appearance of the Irmine. Wild Tex Martin is a 6-page story written and drawn by Will Eisner in this Western Frontier strip. Spurs is a 1-page story drawn by Paul Gustafson. Slim Pickens is a 1-page strip with art possibly by Jack Cole. And Medicine Man is a 1-page story with art by Paul Gustafson. Feature Books number 18, Mandrake the Magician, October 1938, published by David McKay Publications. A 10-cent cover price, but a thick 76 pages. Black and white interior in the early issues, but color covers. Mandrake the Magician is a syndicated newspaper comic strip created by Lee Falk before he created The Phantom. Mandrake began publication on June 11, 1934. Phil Davis soon took over as the strip's illustrator while Falk continued to script. The strip is distributed by Kingfisher Syndicate. In this issue, Mandrake the Magician is featured on the cover with art by Phil Davis. There's 71 pages worth of comic strips written by Lee Falk with art by Phil Davis, and features Mandrake and Lothar, and is reprinted from Mandrake the Magician newspaper comic strip reprints dated 1937. Ace Comics number 19, October 1938, published by David McKay Publications. Captain and the Kids are featured on the cover, drawn by Joe Musial. Some of the featured strips include Blondie, Ripley's Believe It or Not, and Jungle Jim. Detective Comics number 20, October 1938, published by DC Comics. This key issue features the first appearance of the Crimson Avenger. Gerber rates this issue scarce. The official on-sale date of this book was September 7th, 1938. The cover art is by Leo O'Mealia and features policemen. Speed Saunders appears in a 6-page story written by Gardner Fox with art by Fred Gardenier. The detective mystery features the first appearance of the villain Mandarin Hapsu and Ming Toy. Larry Steele is a 6-page story written and drawn by Will Eli, featuring the characters Larry Steele and the villain Enrico. Spy is an 8-page story written and drawn by Siegel and Schuster, featuring the characters Bart Reagan, Sally, and the first appearance of Senator Barkley. Dr. Fu Manchu is a 4-page story written by Sax Romer with art by Leo O'Mealia. The adventure strip, reprinted from the Bell Syndicate strips of 1932, adapted from the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu by Sax Romer. Give and Take is a 2-page text story written by Gardner Fox under the alias Paul Dean, featuring the character Detective Bedford. Bruce Nelson is a 6-page story written possibly by Gardner Fox. Art is by Tom Hickey and features the first appearance of the villain Mrs. Warren. The Crimson Avenger appears in the first appearance in a 6-page strip written possibly by Jim Chambers, and Chambers did the artwork for this early detective/superhero strip, featuring the first appearance of Lee Travis as the Crimson Avenger, also the first appearance of Wing, and the first appearance of the villain Myra North. The first chronological appearance on Origin would be told in Secret Origins from DC in 1986, issue number 5. Slam Bradley appears in a lengthy 13-page story from the team of Siegel and Schuster in their detective mystery. The Funnies, number 25, October 1938, published by Dell Comics. Our Boarding House with Major Hoople is featured on the cover. Some of the interior strips worth noting include Four Aces, 2 pages, written and drawn by Hal Forrest in this aviation adventure strip reprinted from the Four Aces Sundays at the Bell Syndicate. Scribbly appears in 2 pages from writer-artist Sheldon Mayer. The Wonderland of Oz is a 2-page story written and drawn by Walt Spouse in the supernatural tale based on The Wizard of Oz, with the characters Tip, Jack Pumpkinhead, Wooden Sawhorse, General Ginger, and the Scarecrow. Border Wolves is a 6-page story written by Norton Parker with art by Richard Rogers, adapted from the Universal Motion Picture Western Frontier. Tip Top Comics number 30, October 1938, published by United Features Syndicate, features a Tarzan and a lion on the cover. There is a Davis Crippen D-copy pedigree copy of this book. Little Abner, Captain and the Kids, Jim Hardy, Ellis Enders, and other strips appear. King Comics number 31, October 1938, published by David McKay Publications. Joe Musial drew the cover, which features Popeye, Olive Oyl, and Henry. And E.C. Cigar, the creator of Popeye, died in October 1938. New Adventure Comics number 31, October 1938, published by DC Comics. This was the last issue of this title before the name changed to Adventure Comics, a name that would be used for 45 years. The on-sale date of this issue was September 9th, 1938. There is a mile-high pedigree copy of this book. The cover art is by Craig Flessel and features an Eskimo and a polar bear. Federal Men is a 4-page strip from the team of Siegel and Schuster in this detective mystery featuring Peter Hazelton and the villain Jack Grant. Dale Daring is a 4-page story written and drawn by Will Eli, and this is the conclusion of this strip. Andy Handy is a 2-page story written and drawn by Leo O'Mealia in this humor story, and this is the last appearance of this strip. Rusty and His Pals is a 4-page story written and drawn by Bob Kane, featuring the villain Ichabod Slade and Rusty. Anchors Away is a 6-page story written and drawn by Fred Gardenier, featuring the villain El Diablo. Popular Comics number 33, October 1938, published by Dell Comics. The cover features the characters Tailspin Tommy, Willis Willett, Shark Egan, and Mutt. 6 of the strips in this issue are reprinted from Popular Comics number 1. Tailspin Tommy is a 4-page story written and drawn by Hal Forrest. And this comes from the Tailspin Tommy Sunday at the Bell Syndicate from 1937. Don Dixon and the Hidden Empire appear in a 3-page story written by Bob Moore with art by Carl Pfeiffer in this early science fiction tale. Jack Randall is a 6-page story drawn by Norman Fallon. This is an early Western frontier strip based on the Monogram picture starring Jack Randall. And there is an ad for Dell Fast Action books, including Mickey Mouse, King of the Royal Mounted, Dan Dunn, and Charlie McCarthy. More Fun Comics number 36, October 1938, published by DC Comics. The Masked Ranger and his sidekick Pedro begin their series run in this issue. Gerber considers this issue to be scarce. The official on-sale date of this issue is September 1st, 1938, and there's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. The cover art is by Craig Flessel, featuring a kid singing on Amateur Hour program. The Masked Ranger appears in a 6-page story drawn by Jim Chambers, featuring the Masked Ranger, Star, and Pedro. Johnny Law is a 4-page story drawn by Will Eli, featuring Johnny Law and the Tiger Claw Gang. Peeking at Pictures is a 1-page cartoon written and drawn by Sheldon Moldoff. Ginger Snap appears in a 2-page story written and drawn by Bob Kane. The Sports Teacher is a 1-page cartoon written and drawn by Sheldon Moldoff. The Buccaneer is a 6-page story written and drawn by Bernard Bailey in this historical adventure strip featuring Dennis Stone and Captain Cloug. Radio Squad is a 6-page story from the team of Siegel and Schuster featuring Sandy Keene and Larry Trent. Lieutenant Bob Neal of Sub 662 is a 5-page strip written by Bob Hirsch with art by Rusty Lehman in this war tale featuring Lieutenant Bob Neal. This is the first comic book work of artist Rusty Lehman. Mickey Mouse Magazine, Volume 4, Number 1, published by Western Publishing, October 1938. Features an adaptation of the animated short The Brave Little Tailor, Bobby and Chip by Otto Mesmer begins in this issue, and The Practical Pig also begins in this issue. Famous Funnies, number 51, October 1938, published by Eastern Color, the longest-running comic book title of this time and the first to reach a 51st issue. The cover art is by Victor Pazmino, featuring the Great Gusto. Buck Rogers appears in a 4-page story written by Phil Nolan with art by Dick Calkins in this early science fiction classic, copyright John F. Dill. War on Crime is a 2-page story written by Rex Collier with art by Jimmy Thompson in the first modern crime genre strip ever, continuing month to month, copyright the Ledger Syndicate. And Jerry Iger under the alias Bob Bliss gives us the 1-page strip Queenie.